think at first when you come in, and it's a mistake a lot of people just coming in make, is that it's all about your trade identification. That's the magic. That's where the magic is. I think there's that misconception that the magic is in the trades you enter, where I think you find out over time the magic is in what you do with the trade you enter. The magic is the trades you get out of, how you get out of them, and then the magic is in process. You better not rely on what's within, because what's within is out to destroy you. And you've got to recognize that the characteristics that are part of who you are not exactly compatible with the success that you're looking for. And I think that would probably be another thing that just has been remarkable for me to see over and over and over again in myself and others. I am in awe when I meet guys that have really made it as their career in trading, because they have solved hundreds and hundreds of problems, that they have lived this life that is just constantly trying to dig deeper into little problems they have, and they get over a hurdle and they think it's clear running, and they run 5 yards and they hit another hurdle. Then they got to solve that one. I am in awe when I meet guys that have really made it as their career in trading, because they have solved hundreds and hundreds of problems, that they have lived this life that is just constantly trying to dig deeper into little problems they have, and they get over a hurdle and they think it's clear running, and they run 5 yards and they hit another hurdle. Then they got to solve that one.
Those were just some excerpts from the fantastic wisdom of Peter Brandt that he shared in our first interview, which preceded this podcast episode. The interview was a 2-hour-long interview, which we've split into 2 parts. So in this episode today, we're going to go into the second part of that interview. If you haven't heard the first part, we do highly recommend you to check that out. Before we do, just a quick reminder that our podcast sponsor and partner is the Brilliant Society of Technical Analysts. And you can find out about them at technicalanalysts.com. They are a not-for-profit body that exclusively focused on delivering education in trading, focused around price action and the aspects of that related to that, aspects of human behavior and trading performance. We advocate for their home study course, which is a brilliant program put together by some of the world's leading technical analysts, and you can earn a slight discount on that by going to our own website, alpha-mind.net, and signing up through us. Anyway, without further ado, on with this week's podcast.
In the modern era, how do you stay focused on the right information and, that influences your trading decisions?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what practices you guys have. I'd like to hear that. For me, it's place my orders on Sunday nights and change them if necessary at 5 o'clock Eastern time each day. It's decide by Saturday afternoon what markets are my candidate markets for the next week and what it would take a market to do to flash a signal for me, and then turn my machine off. That, some guys need their machine on. That's how they trade. They trade based on stuff's going on during the day. That would drive me crazy. I don't think I could be successful doing that. As a matter of fact, I'm almost sure I couldn't be. I'm not willing to try to find that out. But I need to distance myself from the emotion of price change. I'd really be curious about you guys and kind of where you are on that.
Well, I would write a plan for a pre-commitment to a course of action, and then I'd follow the market, and I'd allow the market to, it would normally be with an evolving sense of following the market. So I might have a level to to buy on a break of X, and then to add another 50%, and then another 30% and 20. So I might write something like a structured moving target for entry with a kind of trailing stop. And sometimes it would happen overnight, sometimes it would happen intraday, but I would just do it if it happened without questioning it. Like a great example is a week or so ago, I'm running a short dollar yen position at the moment, and I decided that if it breaks a level and holds it, I'm adding more. And I woke up in the morning and saw that it'd broken it by miles. And I just added more. I didn't question it, whether it was good to do it at this level or not, because I'm looking at a bigger picture view. So there was a pre-commitment there, and I just did it. And it kind of like, with 100 points view, where 100 points through where I'd last seen it. And it's not to just question whether it's the right thing to do or not. I pre-committed to it. So most of my trades were a pre-commitment to something. But sometimes it would be like that on a break. Sometimes I could see how the market would react to news. So intraday, oh, that was really bearish news and the market's not selling off and I'm looking to buy it. And actually, that's the signal I wanted. So sometimes it would be a judgment, sometimes it would be a level, but there was always a pre-commitment written down somewhere by me. The hardest thing sometimes was sticking to that pre-commitment. All too often I might, just pull back from it because the market's gone there too quickly. And then usually I'd come to regret not doing it.
Well, I like that. That's pre-planned flexibility. What about you, Mark?
Well, I want to reflect upon someone that actually I was sort of in partnership with. I mean, I was his broker, but we kind of worked on a plan for him to enter the markets, and I ran the system for this fella. And this fella was he was a property developer, so he wasn't a trader. He had no screens at home. He got the update on BBC News or he phoned me. And what he did, this had been about 83. He wanted me to sort of understand the vibration of the market. So he didn't look at a market as being directional. He looked at it as being a vibration. He was very interested in what went on between the low and the high of the day. And he wanted to take benefit from that. And he was looking at equities. And so he analyzed 5-minute bar charts going back like 5 years in the S&P. And we discussed things, and he came up with a plan, and that plan was essentially there were packages. He had a package that had a stop, but had to take profit, and these packages would go automatically into the market, and he entrusted me in essentially executing this on his behalf. He was the most successful trader I've ever known. And he had no screen, but he had a discipline and a curiosity to be bothered to look at the personality of a product and really understand it, and then to build a program around that. And it's a very elegant, methodology. So it's a huge process, but he had no screens, and yet he was the most successful person. And it left it to me. So literally, he was not linked to the emotion of the trade, other than me being in touch with him saying, "Okay, yes, you did this, and and tomorrow we did that, and that was it." And to this day, I when I talk to people, and I do some trading myself, and I have a very similar philosophy from having learned that the idea of trusting in the process, putting the risk on, stepping away and just letting it be. There's something elegant about that, and I like that. So that's my contribution.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, because I know guys all over the map on that. Now, I think that's what you're really hitting on, I think, is the importance for an individual who's coming in and they have this rough idea in their head that, they want to somehow speculate in markets, and they want to do that either as a well-paying hobby or a full-time job or whatever the case may be, however they want to fit in, is to recognize that everybody's going to think a different way. And so you you got to find your own way. You've got to figure out what that looks like to each individual person, because it's going to look different. And there's no cookie cutter way to get there. So yeah, I really appreciate hearing that from you guys, your own perspective on how that evolved for you.
Can I just add something? Because there's something I'm dying to say, which is it's been mentioned a couple of times by you both. Mark is you mentioned a sense of what's going on. So you use that word sensing. Peter talked about paints a color. It's really interesting because there's this idea that everything is a number. Okay, but most of the great traders I meet, they sense in between the numbers. Okay, I talk about traders who I know who they almost live inside a matrix of the markets and of the news and of the data, and they feel it. And you talked about that blind trader who obviously felt everything. He felt the direction of the market, the volatility, the pull of the markets, the bid, the offer, the liquidity, really. He must have felt the liquidity and the sentiment. And, not enough people engage with that, in my opinion, anymore. They think it's just a number, a line break. The line break's important, but not every line break is the same. Not every pattern break is the same. You can sense sometimes when it's got something behind it, and when it's maybe just a bit of random price action. And I always remember speaking to a client who'd learned trading. He'd been trying to trade for a couple of years, and he'd come under this, this connection with a very famous trader who was using a very simple method. And he said, "Can I come and fly over and spend a couple of weeks with you and kind of sit with you and learn your method?" And the guy went, "Look, you're perfectly fine to do that, but there's no great science to my method. It's X, Y, Z." And he said, "Yeah, but perhaps if I sit with you, I'll understand it a bit more." And he said, "And I'll take you out for dinner, buy you dinner a couple of nights." And the guy went, "Yeah, I'm fine with that." So he said he sat there with this guy for a couple of weeks, and he said there really was no great shakes to his method at all. It was a very simple structure. But he then took it back, came back to the UK and started trying to trade it. And he said his results with it were terrible. But at the same time, this guy, the guy whose original process it was doing fantastic doing it. And he said to me, I just couldn't understand it. Why could I not do the same as him? And I said that in my opinion, there's two levels you're trading on. There's one which is the actual numbers, the actual signals that you see. But there's a second level, which is what's going on inside you, where you're feeling it. And you can't replicate that. It's as unique to every individual as our fingerprint or our DNA. And that's the bit that I find extraordinary about this job. And it took me years to learn that.
It's intuition, isn't it? It's intuition informed by data.
It's intuition, but the ability to read our intuition and trust it.
Yeah.
What's always amazed me with guys, a few of my friends who are really, they're better traders than me, frankly, is their little nuances that they tell me, these little things that for guys new to the market wouldn't even mean anything. But to these guys, it's a big deal. Little nuanced ways that they read markets, or little things that most people would just overlook. Where these guys have been, they've gone so deep in their own little rabbit holes. They not only know their rabbit holes, they know the little cracks and creases in their rabbit holes. I mean, they've crawled everywhere, and they've gone down other guys' rabbit holes too, just to see what it looks like. And they have a nuanced understanding of the philosophy of trading. They've gone way far beyond the practicalities. They view their lives as a trader very philosophically, not mechanically, but in a deep sense of understanding. It's just like old guys would tell me stuff, and it didn't mean anything for me for 40 years. But 40 years after some little 8-sentence quote they'd give me, all of a sudden I'd go, "Oh my God, I get it." I finally get it. And those to me are really the aha moments, huh, Mark and Steve, where stuff you've just kind of glossed over forever, and somehow, for some reason, you've kind of really gone deep on something, and you go, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I'm sure you guys have kind of, even now, go through that in your stage of your career.
Yes. But there's a brilliant quote from, and I think it was the first Market Wizards book, which to me is still the gold standard for Jack. Maybe because it was new and unheard of at the time. But it was by Richard. It was a quote from Richard Driehaus, who I think was in that book, or it might have been one of the second one. He said, "A trading philosophy is something that cannot just be transferred from one person to another. It's something you have to acquire yourself through time and effort."
Oh, so true. So true. I don't think anybody would ever, they could observe what I do in the markets, but they never get it. Where to me, every little thing has a meaning, and it just, nothing's arbitrary. Everything's kind of been worked out. Now, whether you do that because you're a very mechanical engineer, or you do that because you're an artist, you do that because it's all pre-planned, or you do that because you've got such natural instinct as a painter that every little brush stroke is making it up as you go. But the result is this magic that happens. And I think that my sense is that even really good traders don't appreciate the magic moments of their career until they get further into their career and realize, holy cow, when I made that little change, what a change that was. And they're able to then, it goes from 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional. And you get a fuller understanding of some aspect of trading that you might have even had that aspect correct early on, but it's only later on that you figured out why it was the correct way to do it.
So to me, you've already revealed part of your process at the very beginning of this conversation, where you said, you were looking for that trade where you were looking to go long of the Nikkei, or Nikkei Dow, as you called it. And you were set up for that. And yet your big trade this year has been being short of the Nikkei Dow. And somewhere within that, you didn't get a confirmation for something that should happen. So I guess you then start looking at the other side of it. And then that becomes the trade. And so often that's been what's worked for me in the markets, a disconfirmation that leads you somewhere. And some of you see this incredible value or idea that you look back on it and go, how the hell did I spot that? Well, something that should have been happening wasn't happening. And there's great value sometimes in those moments.
Well, and I think it's even more complex than that, Stephen, because oftentimes somebody will ask me, well, how do I do that? How do I determine where I put my stop here? Why would I like this pattern as opposed to that pattern? And oftentimes I can explain that, and you guys will probably be able to fairly articulately express how you really feel or think about something, right? You're able to put it into words. But there are other things that someone will ask me that, quite frankly, I've really never been able to clearly articulate even to myself. And I think there's almost a danger for me to even try to articulate. I've come to the point where I'm willing to accept some mysteries as mysteries, and that I don't want to totally explain why I did this or that, because in the process of trying to put it into words, I may change it. I may commit myself to something that it really wasn't. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. That's that magic, isn't it? There's that it comes from within, and you can't put your finger on it, but it can only come from within if you pay so much attention to that process.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be able to understand your magic. I don't think you could explain it, Mark. I don't think you could either.
Just know.
You know it's there. You know what it is.
Yeah.
But you can't explain it. Or if you can't explain it, you really, at the end of explaining it, realize I really didn't explain it. And I think to some degree, it's even coming to the point as a trader where I recognize that, where maybe early on I really would try to explain everything, where now I just go, hey, I don't know. Why'd you pick July beans instead of November beans? I don't know. Why'd you pick that as your target instead of that? I don't know. I'm willing to live with I don't knows.
It's fantastic.
I don't know is the greatest. For me, not knowing is the power of not knowing. If you don't know, things come to you. If you think you know, it's usually when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so true. And I think it's in the knowing, the not knowing, that's been the biggest change in the last 10 years of my career. Is if I can say there's been an aha moment for me from year 40 to year 50 in the markets, it's been, I really appreciate the stuff I can't explain. And I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it and watch it happen, and not try to analyze it, but just kind of enjoy it. I can go to the art museum in Paris and not understand what was in the mind of a painter, but still say, "God, is that cool?" Right?
Yeah, I love the sense that, if you're enjoying it, then obviously the opposite to that is you actually hate it. I remember when Jason Shapiro turned up and said, "My God, trading, who'd ever send their kids into trading because, oh my God, what a hell of a career. It's awful. Trading is awful." But if you can find a way to enjoy it, if you can find a way to have that balance and just being satisfied, I guess you don't really have to try, do you? Because things will just emerge, and so you don't have a clue where they emerge from. But from your perspective, they're emerging in the right sort of way that becomes your plan and your process to execute.
Well, I think that's true because it's for me, it's kind of an intellectual game. I mean, to some degree. I mean, I do not publish what my rates of return are. I just won't do it because, quite frankly, it's not for me what it's all about. I mean, this is not about rate of return. It's not rate of return is what I'm not trying to get here. I'm trying to be a better me and become a better me by being the most transparent me I can be to myself. And it's only through self-transparency that I really think that's not going to change the way I trade, but it's going to give me a deeper understanding about the process of me about trading as a human endeavor, an endeavor of the spirit, an endeavor of the mind, an endeavor of the heart, an endeavor of self. Is for me, that's the enjoyment of market speculation, is that endeavor. That makes sense to you guys? I'm sure it does.
We'll return to the podcast in a second. What are you doing to improve yourself as a trader? At AlphaMind, we work with traders from across the markets, both professional and retail, and trading businesses to help people improve their performance. A focus on developing performance is one of the few areas that is very, I suppose you could say, under-practiced in an industry that is really a performance industry, and where developing key aspects, key behaviors, key mindsets can have a huge impact on how you work, how you perform, how you manage risk, how you increase size, how you maintain your sense of self in the face of uncertainty. Do feel free to check out our services as performance coaches. Go to our website, alpha-mind.net, to know more, or email us info@alpha-mind.net. Now back to the podcast.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way of putting it.
It's a journey into self. That's exactly what trading is, and I do wonder how younger people who are just starting out in this, or people who have, and I know quite a few people who start in their 50s and 60s, and they're battling away at this, and they're going, how do I make this work? I've been doing it for 3, 4, 5 years. It's got to start working at some point. What they're making of this, and I like you. I get such joy and pleasure from this. I love this job. There were days where I used to turn up and I used to think, because I was a paid professional trader, so I was paid to turn up. I used to think, wow, and they pay me to do this. It was an incredible job. But actually, there were also days where it ripped a very it ripped the very heart from your the sense. It was like the market could reach down your throat and almost with its hand pull your stomach out and wrench it straight back through your mouth out of it. It was felt so low. And that's the other side of this job, because it could be so painful at times.
It wouldn't just be one day. That could go
on and on for weeks and months. I mean, you get into these deep holes, and how did you obviously, like everyone, must have experienced those times and those moments, and it's the darkest place in the world.
It's terrible. It's just awful. It's a dungeon. During a lot of my career, we've had dogs, and there was one in particular. And my wife used to say, Peter, Gracie knows when you've had a bad day. I don't know how she knows it, but she knows it when you walk in the door. If she goes to you or goes in the other room, I kind of know what your P&L was today. Right. And but I think that for me, that too is kind of been part of the mental fun for me, is how do I challenge myself to be calm in the good and calm in the bad? How do I be a better me at finding peace in the day, in the up days, and peace in the down days? How am I stable? If Gracie was alive today, could I come in and have her welcome me every day, no matter what? It's finding that inner calm, that inner peace as a trader, that place that to some degree becomes agnostic about your positions and your P&L, where you become agnostic about the results of any given trade. That's been the challenge, but that's been a fun challenge. It's been a really fun challenge, and I think I look back at it now as fun. I don't think I looked at it as fun, when I was the first 5 to 10 years of my trading. I don't think it was fun. I mean, it's tough dropping $100,000 a day, and then come in the next day and have it happen again. It's not fun for a guy that's 32 years old and has got a family to support. But it's part of living through that and finding ways to navigate some of that. That's where the challenges are.
Yeah, that sense of balance and, I guess, manage stress, but also to be as present as possible at any given time. And from that presence comes, capability, because the flip side of that, of course, is you venture into stress that becomes super difficult, and from many perspectives, family, performance, your own physical condition impacted by unmanaged stress. And I think that's something that we see. We had a charming young lady come up to us during a conference when we were running workshops, and she said, "So you're trying to make me a better version of me, and as a consequence, I've become a better trader, rather than you're trying to make me a better trader." And that really encapsulates our philosophy, I must say. So
they go together hand in hand. It goes together hand in hand. Well, my best friend is actually a guy that came out of Goldman. He lives on an island up in Scotland, and I know last time I remember where I was standing in this property, as a matter of fact, when he turned to me and said, "Peter, do you ever pinch yourself that we've been able to support our lives doing this crazy job? And it just struck me. It's like, wow. Yeah. And, a big question I'd have for you guys, especially you guys who are coaches, I think you might answer this better than me. Is everybody suited? Is the door, are there some people because of who they are, what they are, where they might just be better off giving their money and letting it be managed passively? I'm really curious about what you guys might think about that question.
Well, I've certainly coached a few people that they've suddenly understood that they've got a far different and more important purpose than trading. And they've left trading to become an investment vehicle that they put out to someone else to manage, and they then go and seek their other purpose with more energy. And they were far more content, following that, the realization that there was something bigger than just, what they thought was the biggest thing, which was trading. There are others that get it and just are comfortable with it and are happy to take the knocks and to learn and to go forward. But I think that there are some that they're just not the right fit for it, and they're too desperate to make money, and and certainly it seems that losses are affecting their lifestyle, and that's withholding all sorts of opportunity for them. So I've found people that through coaching, it's dawning on them that actually the guidance they need is not around trading. It's about almost exiting trading and doing something bigger that they then realize they've got to do.
How have people reacted to you? I'm sure it's happened where you sense that into somebody and you care enough about the person that you just say, you really need to be thinking about something else. How have people dealt with that?
I think to some extent with a degree of relief, if that makes sense. It's almost like they knew that was the answer, but they weren't really willing to own up to it. But when it was talked through, from another person's perspective, if that was asked of me, it was almost a relief that someone was agreeing with them. They'd already worked it out themselves, but they didn't want to believe that because they still thought it was possible, but actually they were kidding themselves.
Yeah, they were living a dream. And that's really interesting. And I give you guys credit for, being able to recognize that and being willing to square with people. And I'm sure it's not always taken in the best way, but hopefully after a period of time, it becomes something they embrace.
Yeah, I have a slightly similar answer to Mark, but a slightly different answer in that I believe anyone can succeed at trading, which goes against what a lot of people think. But I also think most people won't because they don't enter it properly. They go in with unrealistic expectations, or they go in with their context incorrect, or their situation doesn't support it. So a little bit like Mark, I will always have a call with someone before I coach them. And I just want to see if they're viable. Because if I don't think they're viable in terms of their process, their situation, their context, I'll let them know that, I don't think I can do much, because you're going to be owned by the fact that I don't think you can make it as a trader based on your current situation. But if you want to go away and, think about your situation and rejig it a little bit. So for an example, might be someone who comes with, $10,000 in an account and they're going, I want to be making $100,000 in a couple of years' time. And I'm like, you might as well go to Vegas because you're just not being realistic. Or there's people who come to me without a viable process. And I say, look, you need to get the basics and foundations right before you start working with a coach. A coach is someone who's going to take you to a higher level once you've got everything lined up. But it's, it's like, you might start playing golf, but don't go down to Augusta and think you can play that golf course after a couple of years because you can't. Okay, all right, but and at that point, learn how to play golf, learn to have a process. Maybe in a few years' time you can play Augusta. I don't know, but it's too many people come in with wrong expectations or misleading expectations, false expectations. The idea that you can succeed in this in a year or two. I mean, maybe you can. Maybe you're one in a million who can do that with a bit of luck. But everyone's a genius in a bull market. If you want to succeed at trading, you've got to learn to be a genius in a bear market or a sideways market. And that's, so there's so many unrealistic expectations out there. But do I believe anyone can succeed at trading? Yes, I do. I do think that everyone's got the capability to do it. Just very few people will.
Yeah, can I just quote Peter? Can I just quote you from your book, from the Unknown Market Wizards?
Sure.
Because I think you very accurately say, and we see this a lot, don't confuse wanting to be rich with wanting to trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to come from a different place. I mean, I think if your goal is just to trade because you want money, you probably won't make it. I mean, you probably will be a dud because it's coming from the wrong place. You got to trade because you really love the markets, you love the challenge, you love trading. Then you do things, and the outcome is, it's the pursuit. The pursuit is where success comes, not where you think the end result is. And so, but I agree with you, Stephen. It's expectations. I don't know, my sense, and I hope I'm wrong, is that, I kind of look at kind of generational theory. This generation is this, just this generation is that, or whatever generation. But this Z generation, their expectations for trading, that it's not going to end well for them, by and large. I mean, some it will, obviously. It always does for some. But generationally, the expectations of what trading is way out of whack with the Z generations. I don't know. Maybe you guys have observed that or not.
Yeah, I think there's too much marketing out there, and I love this that we're going through our list without actually having to name them. But there is so much social media influence. There's so much marketing out there that's bad, that's there to just entice people to part with their money. But every now and then, and this is something I love about the job I do now as a coach, I meet people, young people, who have gone around it in the proper way and actually are achieving it as a retail trader against the odds. They're defying, the probabilities and succeeding at this. But what they're doing is they're doing it properly. They're not going in with unrealistic expectations. They're learning it, and there's sometimes, and perhaps this is more in the US actually than here. They're working 2 or 3 jobs around it so they can finance their ability to trade, because they know that they even if they earn money and make money in the early days, that's not enough. They need to reinvent. They need to build a pool of capital. So there are people that I meet who go around it properly, and still young people.
There's got to be a fraction. That must be what are we talking about? We're talking about 5 people per 1,000 or something. Minute.
I think that's probably a good number. I mean, and there's quite a bit of research out there on it, actually. And a lot of it's come from the UK out of the Forex thing, where these, they're having to report this stuff. But yeah, I mean, my thinking, the research kind of shows that 5 out of 100 will be profitable over 5 years. That, maybe it's a % or 2 that actually can make a go of it. So yeah, it's a low number, but hey, I appreciate you guys, and I only recommend 2 coach groups in the world, and you guys are one of them. And it's because I believe that you guys are not out to give answers, but you're out to ask questions of the people who come of you. and it's by the questions that they have to answer themselves. You know you don't have the answers. That's why I would recommend one coach over another, is that they don't have the answers, but they have better questions.
Yeah.
And if you let them ask their questions of you, and you can answer those questions thoughtfully, you got a real good run at this thing. And so that's what I appreciate about you guys, is you're not out there with the answers. You're out there with questions, because that's what people need to have. They need to have questions asked of them. They don't need to ask questions and get answers.
Yeah, I had a client say to me once, "Yeah, God, you ask a question that was so obvious, but we never ask it of ourselves." And it's so true. It's so true. You know, it really is.
And it's important. I had one era of my life as a trader where I really needed coaching, maybe two. And I am very appreciative for the people that I had. They weren't formal coaches back then, but they were other traders who were willing to deal with my crap at the time. And, without having people that can be your kind of guide spirit, it's tough. It's tough to make it. It's vitally important to have a sounding board that's wise and have been through the cycle a few times. I think that's where your guys' value is that you can be the mirror in front of people, and you can be their mirror and hold up and try to point things out to them.
We will return to this podcast shortly. Just a quick reminder about our podcast sponsor, the Society of Technical Analysts, a brilliant organisation which help traders and analysts from across the spectrum of markets. They have many fantastic programs, including the new Technical to Trading System program. Also, do check out their brilliant home study course, and AlphaMind listeners can get a discount on that. Just go to our website, alpha-mind.net, to find out more about that. You can find out more about the Society of Technical Analysts by going to their website, technicalanalysts.com. Now back to the podcast. Did you have a mentor when you started?
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think that was the advantage of the exchange, and Mark probably had the same. You both probably had the same thing. Is you've got a kind person who's successful and who comes to know you and like you and care about you. There was a trader that traded for Cargill on the board of trade that took a liking to me. He spent holidays with me and my family. He was a single guy without a family. He borrowed us money for our first home. But tremendous, tremendous, tremendous trading wisdom, and he was willing to impart it. And other guys who would share with me other little things, Peter, get out of losing trades on a Friday. That's my advice to you. Don't take a losing trade home on a Friday. Little things like that where maybe you don't look at it at the time as being, hey, that guy really served a role in my life by telling me that. And so, yeah, but I did have mentors. I had 2 or 3 guys that really helped guide me and advise me well in the early years. I don't know how these guys that are trading on a computer and they're down in their mom's basement with a laptop and they're on all kinds of social media bulletin boards getting information that can't be trusted. I don't know how these guys make it. My heart goes out to these guys because they've really stacked all of the cards against themselves.
Yeah, I just came off a call earlier on with someone who was inquiring about coaching, and he says he has no social media up. He said it's just unhelpful noise. It's just a distraction, and it's a rule of his. He just keeps social media completely away from it, and I get that completely. Although I do engage with social media, I used to, when I worked in the trading room, I didn't want to hear other people's chatter. I wanted to hear interesting stuff. I wanted to hear the tone of the market, the noise, the buzz, that sort of thing. I wanted other people's views if I asked them. And sometimes I had a couple of amazing brokers that will give me color on the market. And I think that's one thing that's missing now is the old-fashioned broker, the guy like you, Mark, that used to be there, that you just could tell something in their voice almost that like, okay, there's information I'm getting from this guy that's reading between the lines. But you don't get that on social media, not from what I see anyway.
No, you can't. You'll appreciate this, Mark, and I know you guys probably going to need to wrap things up at some point, let you do that. But I was on the phone with my broker at the COMEX when gold topped in 1981. And I'll never forget what he told me. And this was moments before the top. And he said, Peter, I don't know what's happening, but we've been busy as crazy. And all of a sudden there's no paper coming in. The pit's quiet. There's nothing going on in the pit. It's been wild. There's nothing happening. No paper coming in. Everyone's standing around. That was the high. That was the high of the gold market. It didn't take that high out for 25 years. You've experienced that. That's color, right? That's color.
Pure color. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So privileged, weren't we? I think so privileged to gone through that period where, it's, like you say, difficult for the people in their basement trading in their mother's house on a laptop to kind of understand that. But we can only wish them well. And of course, the coaching and having a mentor. I had a mentor too in the early '80s. He was the international treasurer of NatWest Bank, a guy called Ron Porter, who went to Chicago in the late '70s. Met with Hal Hansen and the Fed and decided that London needed a futures market. And he was my mentor. And he was this lovely character that just kept on helping me and pushing me along. And it's nice to have that.
And we were thinking, what are these Brits going to do? What do they know about futures? That's what we were saying at the time. How are they going to figure this out? And of course they did. You've got great markets over there now. But
for sure. Indeed, we're on the map, so to speak.
I'm mindful that we're a bunch of old boomers talking like yesterday was the greatest ever. But there is one thing that this generation has, which we didn't have. And if you can pick through it and wade through it, and it's the quality of the data and some of the instruments and tools they have now. And I look at them and my clients sometimes show them to me, and I'm like, wow, that's powerful. That's incredibly powerful.
Amazing. Yeah, we didn't have that, and they have great tools. If they can figure out what I told guys is, you're going to be searching for information, and you may hear the thoughts of 100 other traders. Your job is to figure out the 2 or 3 that are telling you the truth, because that's what it's going to amount to. Out of those 100 voices, there's going to be a couple. And they're not going to necessarily be the loudest. They actually may be the quietest voices, the most obscure voices, the answer that is not as direct as the answer you're looking for. So your job is to try to find those 2 or 3 guys voices that actually are being truthful to you, that are telling you it the way it is. So I think that's the challenge with all of the noise that's taking place with social media today.
Yeah, but there are, so it's to wade through that, and I suppose in a way, in our own day, we'd be surrounded by an awful lot of people that were unhelpful, that would put their bad onto you, that would sometimes dump on you, and in a way, all it is just a kind of the same things carry on now in a different medium, in a different format.
Yep.
And some of the things that, like I say, some of the data tools and instruments that are out there now and is produced, some of it is brilliant stuff. And learn how to use it and being willing to invest in it sometimes. They don't come cheap, the really good stuff.
Totally.
There's people that won't put money into. They won't put money into coaching, but they also won't put money into these tools. They want free tools, and the results don't come free. They need some sort of investment sometimes.
No, I mean, I see that. Traders want it now. They want it quickly. They want it big.
Yeah.
They want it free. And unfortunately, that's not the way life deals it out. So,
no, brilliant. Listen, I'm mindful of the time, and we've got to probably start bringing this to a close. Mark, do you have any sort of final question that you'd like to put to Peter, or statement even?
The obvious one is, what would you be saying to your 18-year-old self going into the CBOT pit, knowing what you know
now? I would say it's going to take you, if this is really what you want to do, it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to really kind of get on track. And so you better make sure you take small losses, because by the time you figure it out, you're going to want to make sure that you've still got money left to be able to put something into place that's going to be rewarding. And so you really make small bets, make super small bets. And if you think you're not small enough, then cut that in half. And because you need to keep your capital together, unless you've got an unlimited source of new capital. Of course, you may be married to a neurosurgeon and who's willing to support your bad habit of trading. But if this is your money, you really want to be sparse with it until you really have a feel that you can trust what you're doing. That's what I think I tell my 18-year-old. I tell him, be open-minded. Just be willing to think of new things.
Would your 18-year-old listened?
No, absolutely not. But he might when he's 41. Yeah, well, and to tell you the truth, I'm a crummy stock trader. I'm just awful. Oh my goodness, I'm embarrassingly awful as a stock trader, and so I'm a 79-year-old who's not willing to listen to his 51-year-old son, who is absolutely a brilliant stock trader. So, yeah, it's all relative, right?
Absolutely. Well, listen, I think it's been an absolute joy having you on our podcast, Peter. Real honor for us to really go into some of these things that we've not really done with our other guests. Really, the reality of it and the honesty of it, and getting your reflections on that as knowledge that's important for people to acquire and understand and apply to their own journey. We've got different journeys. So I can only end this by just saying thank you. So,
well, it's been my pleasure, really. It's been my pleasure, Stephen, Mark, and I have great respect for what you guys are doing. I try to send business your way. I don't know if any ever knocks on your door, but I certainly will drop your name when somebody asks me for a recommendation of a coach. And I think that belief has pretty well been confirmed by just a wonderful conversation today with delightful questions and insight by you guys. You're my peers.
There you go. We're carrying the flag.
Thank you very much. We wish you best of luck and many more years' success, Peter.
Thank you. We'll talk again, I'm sure.
Yeah,
bye.
Thank you so much for listening today. We do hope you enjoyed that podcast with the legend Peter Brandt, there was just so much wisdom, and we're extremely grateful for him taking the time to share that wisdom with us today. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do feel free to email us at times. Email at info@alpha-mind.net. If you want to know more about any of our services, our coaching, you can also reach us at that address. Big thank you to the Society of Technical Analysts, the STA, for their support, which makes this podcast possible. Do check out their services, technicalanalysts.com. And do also consider their brilliant home study course, and there is a discount for this amazing course, which has been put together by many of the world's leading technical analysts for you. And that just leaves us to say thank you very much. Do check out the first episode if you haven't heard it yet, and do feel free to check out any one of our, nearly 150 episodes now. There is a depth and wealth of wisdom there. Good luck in the markets. Thank you.